Hi, everyone. We'll let people start logging in, getting their audio set up, and then we'll get started here in just a minute. Awesome. Got lots of folks joining. Hope everyone brought their lunch. I know it's a lunchtime webinar. I scarfed down some chicken salad just before.
I actually went on a mile-and-a-half little jog a little bit before this, so I'll have to catch lunch after that. But I find like going on a little jog, getting pumped up right before you do these things is a good thing. I did a post on LinkedIn today talking about music that pumps you up. I think it'd be great. Make sure everybody is on this, able to find the chat box and the QA box. If you have any favorite songs that are going to pump you up or what you listen to, drop them down there, or what you like to do before you get ready for a big meeting. Let us know. That. Show us, how to use the QA box down below and the chat box.
That's so true. We should have had pump up music playing, Kristen.
I was thinking about that. So I actually had this idea of a video that we're going to make using some good pump up music. Oh, I'm a big Swiftie. I love Taylor Swift.
I do too.
She's an awesome performer too, but we're going to do a video for Can Time here soon where I think we're going to leverage Born to Be Wild. Some Steppenwolf. That intro is like, it's solid.
Awesome. All right, it's decided. Next time we're having pump up music during this time when we're letting everybody log in. But
yeah,
looks like we have most people, so I'll go ahead and kick us off. So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 4 strategies for creating a competitive advantage for your agency. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. You all are in listen only mode, so no need to worry about muting yourself or the dogs in the background. You're in listen only mode. As Kristen mentioned, we've got both the Q&A buttons as well as the chat feature. We definitely want to hear from you and make sure that we're making the best use of your time as possible. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. If you want to add to the conversation, send us a chat. Let us know where you're calling in from today, what your pump up music is as we get started here. We'd love to hear from you and just make sure everything's working here on Zoom. And then I'll save you the time. The most popular question that we get is, are you recording this? The answer is yes. And we will definitely send this out just as soon as we can post-webinar. So I'm Jess Chu. I have the privilege of being the VP of Marketing here at Trella Health. For those of you that are not familiar with Trella Health, we offer analytics solutions to home health organizations, hospice organizations, skilled nursing facilities, health systems, physician groups, and most recently ACOs. Our solutions are all about helping organizations with smarter growth and healthier outcomes. And I'm joined by Joe Brentz, who has a really interesting background, has been a professor at NYU, have down here the Director of Innovation and Strategy at Allegheny Health Network. Joe, great to have you on today, and I'll let you talk a little bit about MedBridge and your role there.
Sure, Jess. Hey, I appreciate the intro. I recently moved over to MedBridge as the head of home and community care strategy and solutions. What MedBridge offers is really this all-in-one solution for education for both your employees as well as your patients. So we know that education can really drive the outcomes of the care that you're providing. So we do that by not only upskilling your staff through high quality educational videos, but additionally tool sets that you can educate your patients as well. Thanks.
Wonderful. And also joined by Kristen Duell, Executive Vice President at Can Time. Kristen has more than 17 years of experience in healthcare, started on the non-clinical patient care side, and has worked in a variety of acute and subacute settings. So welcome, Kristen. Excited to have you on, and I'll let you share a little bit more about Can Time.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here. Thank you for having us. So CanTime is the premier enterprise solution for the post-acute care market. So the way that I like to explain it to everybody is that with CanTime, if there's services that are provided at the home, then it's more likely than not that we're going to be able to have a solution that's going to be able to meet your needs. And I think one of our unfair advantages is the fact that of our ability to be able to really stretch and be flexible with what your configurations are and what your needs are at an agency level. We have what best practices are, but best practices are the things that have been done and tried and true before in the past. We're also able to really be nimble and agile with the fact that we're in an ever-changing environment with regulatory needs. And hey, you never know when the next pandemic's going to happen. How is your solution going to be able to really be there for you? And that's what CanTime's able to do. I am honored and pleased to be able to be the person that oversees the marketing and business development specifically for CanTime. And I'm honored to be here. So thank you, Trella, for hosting us and having. Oh, I'm so glad somebody did this. You're on mute. I was.
No.
Well,
it wouldn't be a webinar today if somebody wasn't on mute. So happy to be that person for you guys. But let's jump in on today's topic. So, it's a competitive market out there. The pandemic certainly didn't change that. It only made things tougher. And so, finding your competitive edge is so important right now. So that's why we're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about a couple different areas and how you can gain that competitive edge. So the areas where we're going to focus are understanding your market landscape and its specific challenges, using technology to scale your business, taking a data-driven approach, and optimizing the patient experience. So with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing so we can focus on what we are talking about, not on slides. And the first topic, understanding your market landscape and its specific changes and challenges. So there's a lot going on today. One of the favorite things that I love about Trella and my role here is that we work every year on an industry trend report. So we just put out an industry trend report, and it has a lot of really interesting national trends. And there's a couple things that I wanted to bring to this group today to talk about, and things that, whether or not they're impacting you today, certainly worth taking a look at. So the first of those, balance of Medicare Advantage and fee-for-service beneficiaries continues to shift. So we saw an increase in Medicare Advantage enrollees by 9% year over year. We actually saw fee-for-service enrollees decrease. So Medicare Advantage enrollees now make up about 40% of all Medicare beneficiaries, and we don't expect that to slow down. So Medicare Advantage plans, in some areas of the country, they're more heavily concentrated than others. So if it's not come to your neck of the woods yet, just something to be aware of, because it's certainly a growing trend, and we don't see it slowing down anytime soon. When it comes to discharge instructions and top PAC destinations, home health continues to be the top destination from an acute stay. It narrowly edged out SNF as a destination, but we also don't expect that to slow down anytime soon. We expect to see a continued increase in referrals to home health. And then one more thing on hospice. Hospice admissions remained stable even during the pandemic. We did see average length of stay increase by 1.6 days. So now on an average, we're at 79.5 days, which is really great to see, but there's a ton of room for improvement there, and really still an opportunity to continue to educate referral sources, physicians, health systems on when is appropriate to refer to hospice, and what you should be looking for. So huge opportunity for hospice. And then last stat for me, I don't want to get too carried away with stats, telehealth, 3,334% increase year over year in telehealth claims in April of last year. So just a huge uptick. A lot of that was due to some of the regulatory changes that made that possible, but just something to keep in mind, there's certainly been a shift in patient expectations and patient acceptance of some of this new technology, and we don't expect telehealth claims to shift much. We expect to see that to continue to increase. So just a couple stats I thought would be interesting to to think about as you're thinking about your market and what's happening in your market. That's what's happening at a national level. And Joe, love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, Jess, actually to tie into what you just stated about telehealth, over on the MedBridge end, we've been hearing a lot of our customers discussing telehealth and really this concept of moving away from the traditional, 100% of care is being done on site to really this hybrid plan of care type model where you're blending on-site care with some type of patient engagement tool, some type of virtual care, remote patient monitoring. There's a slew of virtual ways to interact with your patients, and we're really hearing a lot of our customers talk about this. I think if we think about what COVID did, is that the rate of adoption of something like telehealth really was sped up. If we think about traditionally, we'd look at a law of diffusion of innovation where you have some early adopters to a technology, you kind of these people that will adopt it, and once all those kinks are worked out, and then there's the late adopters. We really saw that sped up, in which not only did you have this early adoption bucket, but really those people that'd be kind of in the middle adopted this technology as well, really out of necessity because of the forces that were placed in the market. So hybrid plan of care models really emerging in a post-acute setting, specifically home health agencies. We're hearing a lot from our home health clients and customers, really questions around how do we prepare staff to engage in this type of environment? How do we get them to shift from what they've traditionally done on site to really incorporating some virtual touch points? Another big change that we saw with the beginning of COVID is more acute patients entering the home environment. So while patients may have had longer lengths of stay in the hospital or maybe shifted to a skilled nursing facility, what we saw was more acute patients being shifted home. So our customers came to us asking, how do we prepare our staff effectively to manage these higher acuity patients? Do we need to develop specialists? Do we need to upscale our general staff? So we're really seeing this trend of higher acute patients entering the home environment, which requires really a higher skill set of the clinicians that are interacting with them. The third model or change that I'll kind of share here, and then I'll pass the torch back over, is really the emergence of innovative service lines. So we're seeing things emerge like hospital at home, skilled nursing facility at home. We're seeing really rethinking about how healthcare is being delivered and what is the optimal setting to deliver services. So I think, as we consider changes, there have been significant changes over the past year, but what that's led us to do is really consider the consumer. What is the safest environment to manage them, and what's the most appropriate environment to manage them, and what's the best way to ensure that they're involved in their care as well. So Jess, I'll pass the torch right back to you.
Yeah, no, and I love that point you made about shifting the caregiver training and support as they're adopting new models of giving care and different technologies. So really, really interesting time to be in healthcare, for sure. Kristen, anything you want to add on this topic?
I think you guys covered the majority of it, but I think from our perspective at CanTime and what we really saw happen is there was this immediate worry that when COVID hit, new customer acquisition in regards to looking for new technologies and partners and providers, like what CanTime does, was going to go down dramatically. But then very similar to what Joe just said, we saw actually people reaching out and asking, hey, we need to figure out how to manage in this new environment. Our systems are too rigid. They're not able to maintain. What are you guys doing with the COVID protocols? CanTime was one of the first ones out there and still has some of the best intuitive solutions to be able to manage, like if people are sick and things like that. So from our perspective, although we saw a lull for the first few weeks a year ago, right now, we saw it pick up dramatically very quickly after that. And from CanTime's perspective, buyer intent and new customer acquisition has actually been the best that it's ever been. So I think it goes to show the power of having a really great partner and great technology solutions and what that can do for your business.
Absolutely, which ties nicely to the next topic, which we'll go ahead and shift to, using technology to scale your business. And there's huge efficiencies to be gained from having the right technology in place. I think we'd all agree about that, and as well as the positive impact it can have on your staff and on patient experience. And I have to share a quick story here. It's just super top of mind. I just had to go see a specialist a few weeks ago. As I was trying to figure out which specialist I wanted to go see, of course, pulled them up in MarketScape, had to check quality metrics. But I ultimately decided on someone who had great metrics, but also was part of the health system that I see for all my other specialists. And I thought, great, I won't have to learn a new patient portal. They'll have all of my prescription information, all of my medical history. It will make it just a seamless experience for me. It'll give him everything he needs when I see the specialist. And I just have to tell you how frustrated I was when I went to see that specialist. I was handed 10 pieces of paper, front and back, to fill out in the waiting room. Did that. Then, the doctor had none of my information. None of it. And I realized as I was checking out, it was because they weren't on the same EHR as the rest of the health system for reasons I have no idea. I could even tell how frustrated the person who was behind the desk trying to help me schedule my next appointment and take my payment was, because they couldn't get the system to work right. And it just, even though I had a great visit with the specialist, the experience all around what left me just really frustrated. And, Kristen, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like this is something that you and the Can Time team probably spend a great deal of time thinking about. So,
well, and I think it's just it's a really human thing that all of us, all hundreds of people that are on this call right now, I think every single one of us have a story of having this experience in some fashion or another. And it's frustrating and it's irritating, and it should be better than it is, especially with the way technology is just overall in our world, regardless if you're talking about healthcare or not. The fact that healthcare technology and the integration and the interoperability aspects of it is still so very frustrating. I have many stories that go into that. I've turned around and walked right out of a primary care's office because they were not only anti-technology, they were so proud of the fact that they thought they would get better outcomes by a human looking at drug interactions better than what a technology can do. And do not mistake what I'm saying here. Human interaction and intervention is critical to what we do. Technology is not there to replace that, but technology is there to assist, because I can't tell you how many times I've done something where I misread the medication label. Is it 1 to 2 every 4 to 6, or is it 4 to 6 every 1 to 2? Little things like that. It's a really scary thing to do, right? But you need technology there to assist you with those things. And it's just the way of the world now. It's the world that we're living in, to not, so if you're not thinking strategically about how your solutions are fitting together and how your partners are interacting, it's not only a challenge for your patients, it's a challenge for your users. It's a challenge from the aspect of how you're perceived, which we're going to go into that more later. But there's really 3 main benefits to having the right technology and the right solutions in place. And I'll go over those in more detail. But the first one is user acceptance and adoption. And the second one is going to be really, what is your time from referral to intake to billing to payroll for cash flow purposes? Cash is king. And then the third one that I'm going to talk about is market perception and what that means, because perception's reality, people. So we know that. So I'll go back up to the top of the first one that I was talking about, is user acceptance and adoption, and really what that means from a technology's perspective. We all agree that having great tech is going to be something that is going to benefit your organization. And as a leader in the company, I see all kinds of really cool things that I want to buy for my team. I see all kinds of stuff that I want to do, and I go after it and I'm like, yes. But then what happens when you buy it and nobody's using it? And nobody's really adopting, and the adoption rate's low. So then your ROI is low, but your costs are high because you just spent a chunk of change on a technology and on a solution. And where's it at? So one of the key things that you have to do whenever you're talking about user adoption and acceptance testing of it is bringing your people into the decision-making process and really helping them understand why it is that you're doing this. What's the problem that it's going to solve? We live in the US, and I like to say it as a US thing, but it's really a human thing. Who here loves to be told what to do? Like, is there anybody in the history of anything that loves, you're going to use this and this is how it's going to be? And yes, there's organizations and businesses that are going to do that, but you can find that the better cultures, the better adoption rates, the better retention, and all of the things that go with that are when you bring people into the decision-making process. And technology decisions are no different. In fact, they're just as important, because there is a big cost to that, but there's a huge ROI back for it as well. So that's one thing that I think you really have to consider. And then the second one that I talked about was cash is king. It's that process from referral data, intake, clinical documentation, to we need to bill for the visit, we need to do payroll, and then where's that money coming in? And if you don't have great solutions that are nimble for you, that you're able to be configurable to the various different payers and all the changes that are going to take place with the payer regulations and rules and documentation needs and all of that stuff, then it's going to slow down things for you, you know? So having a system that is really going to help you be agile and nimble to that process is going to help your cash flow, and which ultimately is going to make your business more successful, which is going to increase your retention rate because people can feel comfortable that they're going to have a job. And then the third one is that market perception piece of it. I mean, perception is reality. It might not be the truth of the matter, but if you walk in like I did to a primary care, or you choose just a new system and you believe because of they're on a different EHR, but yet they're broken systems, your perception is going to be, you know, it's not going to be that great. And you may or may not put a review out there about it, but those reviews and that word of mouth, it impacts. I'm really proud to say that word of mouth is actually the #1 referral rate for Can Time and how we get new business. It's because our users, our clinicians, our caregivers, the people in the field, the people that are in the office, they love the system so much that they're always referring new customers to us that way. That's no different in any business, right? So your perception is your reality, both internally and externally. You want to get the top staff to work with you and the top nurses, you need to have the top solutions that's going to really help them so that they can do what it is that you hired them for, which is to provide great, excellent care and not have an old, antiquated system there. So I know I said a whole lot, Jess, but I hope that was helpful for everybody.
No, absolutely. And certainly hit home for me a lot of those points. I mean, I certainly think about the technology that a company uses whenever I think about, you know, joining that team. And it just really does make an impact on not only your business, your staff, and again, that patient experience. So that was really helpful, Kristen. All right, now for one of my favorite topics, taking a data-driven approach. So I could probably do an entire webinar myself talking about taking a data-driven approach, but Joe, let's start off with you. And you know, what do you think is most important for organizations to consider or know about being data-driven?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Jess, and really a relevant question in this age of technology, and as we've seen, kind of all these things shift in terms of that type of adoption. So one of the things that we commonly hear from our customers at MedBridge, and this is really some newer trends, we've heard questions around really how do we take a data-driven approach to onboarding our new hires. Something that may have not been thought about in the past when you hired that new nurse to your agency or new therapist. You may have brought them into a classroom setting, maybe took them through some precepted visits, but really with COVID, what we saw was a shift away from the classroom setting and really the need for technology to drive that interaction. So as we think about data around onboarding, one of the most common things that we hear when we're engaging with customers is how do we understand our true time to productivity? So from that start date to the point in which that individual is productive out in the field seeing patients, that's extremely important. You had mentioned really the growth, specifically in the home health setting. So as there's that growth in the setting, new individuals have to enter that market either through acquisitions or organically you're hiring new people to the setting. So you need to onboard them and understand how long will this take. When you take that data-driven approach, then from a financial perspective, you can forecast, all right, it's going to take this person 50 days to onboard. We know they're going to be productive at this point. We're going to have so much revenue generated from them seeing visits. So now your financial forecasting becomes more accurate. From an operational perspective, you're able to schedule or accept new patients and territories based upon that productivity date. So really looking at data, not only historically the way we've looked at it around quality and operations, but now thinking about down to the level of onboarding staff, what data do we need to consider as we're hiring those new individuals. The second piece around being data-driven is quality. And as we think about the post-acute setting, we're really seeing a payer shift toward more value-based payment type models. So agencies are really looking for innovative ways to improve the quality that they provide. I talked a little bit earlier around those hybrid plan of care models, but essentially understanding what patients might be eligible for that type of model. So using data to drive that decision through some type of risk stratification. And then understanding, do we have performance gaps, and using data to identify those performance gaps, and then understand from that, how can we remediate them in the most efficient way. And we're hearing that a lot, and really hearing it to the point where at MedBridge, we developed this concept of micro-learning. And what it is 3 to 4 minute snippets of videos that essentially say, okay, here's the quality indicator that you've identified, you need to focus on. We don't need to, in the past, we may have assigned like a 30-minute video to remediate that. We know that it's very focused. So let's give you the smallest piece of information to essentially impact that score. So really thinking about data, I think about it from an educational perspective. But Kristen, I'm going to pass it over to you from an EMR or operational perspective. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you said a whole lot there that was really great. And the productivity piece of it all, it applies for education, it applies for cash flow, it applies for all different things and how your people are being productive and what that means to your retention and cash flow. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, like, if cash is king, then your data is like the castle that the king lives in, right? Because it's built on your foundations. And it's really like, how well is that kingdom? Is it fortified? Are your foundations good? Are you going to be able to stand the test of time as an organization? I mean, is your goal to grow organically and to be an acquisitional buyer, or is your goal to be maybe purchased by another business? And what you really look at whenever you do that is based off of your data and your metrics and how you're doing within the business, how you're doing within your customer service, and all of those different aspects. So I think every single healthcare tech company out there spouts that we've got data, and there's you're able to dive into that data. But what good is the data if you're really not able to use it? One of the things that we focus in on at CanTime, I mean, it's a part of our 2 core principles, is do it right the first time and manage by exception. And those are based off of the fact that you're able to action on your data. If you are doing it right the first time, then they say that there's an infection, then it's popping up that the infection report, which then is going to allow for your time at the patient home to be decreased and be focused in on the actual care and what services need to come out. And managing it by exception is bringing the data back up to you so that you don't have to go hunt and peck within the system to figure out, what do I need to do next? When you log in, you're able to actually really see right then and there what it is that you need to do for the day to day. I think so many times agencies run into the fact that they have to staff very heavy in order to make sure that they're getting the proper quality of care, that the billing is going out on time. And I'm really proud to say that a lot of our customers actually have been able to shift so that they're more into the business development and referral side of things, because they're able to run so much more efficiently from the actual intake and business office side. I know that, Jess, you guys from Trellis perspective, you guys have, I mean, you're data kings. So you guys know a whole lot about the referral data and things that I'm talking about there. So I'd love to hear what you have to say and weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, well, and I wrote down data is the castle. Love that, Kristen. And one of the questions we received was, how do you build relationships with referral sources? How do you increase referral sources during COVID, when on-site visits have been really difficult? A lot of places are still restricting them. It's been a little bit harder to get into places. And so, for me, it's really just put more of an emphasis on the fact that you need to be building personalized outreach to the people that you're trying to connect with. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to use data. It can be effective to say, oh, we both went to the same college, but it's even more effective when one, this person that you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to get in front of, are they the right person? Do they have the right patient mix? Do they have the right volumes? Do they already have a high affiliation with a very competitive agency? Or are they unaffiliated and clearly don't have a preferred partner? And so that might be a little bit easier to get into. So first, just using data to make those decisions about who you're going to be building relationships with. And then 2, getting a better understanding of that person that you're reaching out to, that organization. What types of patients do they treat? Where do they seem to be having challenges? Do they have certain diagnostic groups that they seem to have more readmissions from, and they need a better partner in that area? And that happens to be a specialty program that you're really proud of. Finding out that information and then using that to determine what types of information you're going to bring and try to get in front of someone with. That can be a huge game changer. And it's what we hear from customers, that that's what really helps them break through right now. And it's particularly challenging to get in front of people, is by being able to share something that is meaningful, that is data driven, and that is going to have a real impact for the person that you're trying to reach. So yeah, just a lot of reasons to use data right now. All right, so that takes us to our final topic. And I know I talked about it a little bit, but let's dive a little bit deeper into optimizing the patient experience. So Joe, why don't you start us off on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we think about how do we optimize the patient experience, we have to truly understand really a shift in thinking in how patients are involved in their care planning, as well as their interventions. Historically, in the healthcare landscape, it was the patient participation was very passive, where the physician said, okay, patient A, do this, and the patient did that or followed that. I think what we've seen is that type of relationship doesn't truly move the needle in terms of improving outcomes. What does is involving the patient within their plan of care, not only making healthcare decisions, but additionally taking the steps to take control of their condition or doing exercises that might prevent something from occurring. So there's this concept that's really emerged around therapeutic alliance. And what therapeutic alliance is really the collaborative relationship between a clinician and their patient. And what therapeutic alliance does is it's very predictive over outcomes. So regardless what type of interventions provided, we know in healthcare, patients can present with the same condition, but different clinicians will do different things. What's very predictive over outcomes is how that patient feels in terms of connection, in terms of the connection with the provider, as well as the connection with their plan of care. Do I believe that this is going to help me? Because if they don't think it's going to help them, they likely won't get better, even if the best interventions are provided. So patient experience is extremely important in terms of that concept. What we're seeing really emerge in the market as well is this focus on patient engagement technology. So leveraging tools that can be provided to the patient to really ensure that they understand, let's say, we'll use home care as an example. Let's say that the patient has a wound. In the past, the nurse might go in, provide some type of wound care service, leave some type of paper handout, and come back a couple of days later. Where now there's technology that exists that essentially says, all right, patient, between these visits, do this. And they're able to engage with interactive videos. They're able to say, text message in a secure manner back to their clinician. Here's what I experienced when I attempted to do my wound care. They're really engaged in caring for their condition. So on the MedBridge end, that is kind of the second half of our platform when we talk about all-in-one solution for employees and patients, really focusing on how do you engage patients in effective ways to be involved in their care plans. Kristen, what are your thoughts?
I love the trust, the therapeutic alliance. Like, I love that. And it's a great way to, talk about what needs to be happening from the patient experience perspective, to the caregiver experience, to just what's going on in your agency and bringing that data even back into it. Like I said before, it's not just a US thing. It's not just it's a human thing. People don't want to be talked to, they want to be talked with. How often do you go to a physician's office and they're talking to you and whatnot? It's that interaction and it's the communication back and forth and asking meaningful questions and being able to see them work through that process. I think having a solution and having technology and partners in place that will put that as a focus is a really key area. And that's a big benefit for agencies that have invested in that. Technologies where the nurse is head down and not able to look up at the patient when they're doing the assessments and they're only coming up. And how many times have I heard in my career over the 17 years I've been doing this, caregivers having to document in the car, nurses having to document at their home late at night to finish the completion of that. There's so many different tools and technologies out there that streamline that process so that you can document with the patient in the patient home effectively. and really driving that communication aspect of it. I think that that's a big piece of this, and that's really the big perception piece for how patient experience is going to impact your organization and really help you grow from a word of mouth perspective. So I'll pass it back over to you, pass the baton over to you, Jess.
Yeah, no, I think those are really great points, and a lot of good information today about how to gain a competitive advantage. Hopefully we've given you some things to think about. I know some things that stood out to me, definitely be watching national trends, and if they're different than what's happening in your market, try to figure out why, and if that means that that's probably coming to your market soon. Again, Medicare Advantage not going away, telehealth not going away. Figure out how those things are going to impact your business and how you can use that to build a differentiation for yourself. Joe, loved what you shared about micro learnings and trying to use data to speed up the time of new hires and onboarding. I mean, we all know that staffing shortages are a huge challenge for organizations right now, and so figuring out any way to shorten that time of onboarding is really important. Kristen, loved what you said about employee adoption and what a big impact that can make sure that your organization is using the technology that you're giving them, that you're helping them, and not just giving them another solution to navigate their day, and how much it can impact their job satisfaction, which again, as we know, staffing shortages is a huge issue. So very important. So if you haven't had a chance to submit questions, go ahead and do that now. If you have comments or things you want to add to the commentary, go ahead and add that in chat. We'll pop up a quick poll. If you've been intrigued by any of the things that Kristen, myself, or Joe have said, we'd love to continue the conversation with you guys and how we could help. But go ahead and answer that and get those questions in. We'll start in on questions next. A little bit more time. This would have been a good time for hype music too, Kristen.
Yeah, I was thinking do, the clock ticking.
I love it.
I will say that with hype music, like I love it, but the importance of making sure the lyrics are appropriate is really important when you're using hype music. Funny stories there.
Awesome. All right. Quick comment from Martin on the phone. Love this. So time and education for staff, referral sources, and clients, using a metric for overall growth in the market with all of these issues in mind. A lot of good points there. So first question, customer service. How do you make sure your teams are providing the right service to patients and using that as a differentiator? I'll add a little bit here, and then definitely want to open it up to Kristen and Joe for your perspectives. But I think, what I've always found to be true is how you treat your staff is then how they're going to treat your customers or patients. And so making sure that they feel enabled and empowered to be able to do their jobs efficiently, effectively. I mean, going back to my story of checking out at the doctor's office, I don't think that the person who was helping me meant to have a negative impact on my experience, but she was really frustrated with trying to work the system and help me schedule and get paid. And so just thinking about how that impacts patient experience and the likeliness of people to return to your organization is huge, I think.
Yeah.
So,
I'll just add to what you said there. I think that that's a huge aspect of it. Is everybody wants to say we're customer service oriented and those types of things, and they forget about their people sometimes. And then there's the reverse of it. We say we're a people first, an employee first organization, but are you walking the walk? Are you really talking the talk, walking the walk, and understanding what your people are needing and understanding the challenges that they have internally? I think if you look inward, always, just in life, you look inward to what's going on in your business and yourself and with your people, and you start solving those problems just from a leadership perspective, you're going to have better customer service. It's a natural outcome of that feature, of that aspect of just leadership, so really putting an emphasis on your people and understanding the challenges that they have, navigating the systems that you have in place, and then working with your partners to overcome that is going to be a big piece.
And what I would add to that is, a lot of us in healthcare think about the healthcare delivery itself, and oftentimes we'll miss the communication skills that our clinicians are providing out in the field, or maybe our back office supports providing in the office. Just thinking about, how do our clinicians have the skill set to de-escalate a situation in which a patient might be upset or angry because, let's say, for an example, that clinician shows up an hour late to the appointment. I think number one, just teaching how to apologize in that type of situation. I'm sorry you experienced that. I can't imagine how that must feel. Next time I will ensure that I will, call you to let you know my time of arrival. Understanding that it's really important that we validate concerns of our patients. We don't essentially say like, oh, have an excuse, but validate and say, we can't imagine how that must feel, and here's the action that I'm going to take to resolve this in the future. Really thinking about soft skills like that is extremely important, and sometimes does get overlooked as we're onboarding new hires to an organization, or working with our existing staff.
That's huge. I had to say that, like, that's so big, is the embracing of emotional intelligence and helping your team have a higher emotional intelligence and how they're able to communicate. Like, that's so important. That's all I had to say to that, but it was great. Like, that's
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just underscores making sure that your team knows that even though their job may not say customer service, that every touch point that you have with a customer or patient is part of the experience. And we have a great blog about the intake process and how, you've got the sales and the marketing folks out there trying really hard to get new referrals in. And it's really important to make sure that the people working the front desk, the intake process, and the phones understand that they're a really important part of the referral process. So just making sure all those things are connected. We have another question here. Do you have any hospice technology programs that you would recommend in processing referrals, admissions, etc., to help with organizing details and gathering information that are easy to share among team members?
I will happily jump right in.
I knew, Kristen, I was like, wait.
I was giving a second there, just pause and make sure nobody else wanted to jump in first. But so I think that boils down to your systems and your processes, right? So having a really good solution that you're able to document within one system, what it is. So like if you have can time in place from a hospice perspective, we are able to be that solution that is allowing naturally the cross flow and care coordination. Our IDT process is the best in the market, and your ability to really be able to communicate effectively is basically leveraging a system that's housing that for you, right? It's not a bunch of disparate solutions as much as it is just having one really great solution in place and then plugging in the partnerships to help build that, like the partnerships that we have with MedBridge and Trella, and leveraging those data assets. But being able to have a really great solution, can time is something that is absolutely there. It's very similar to how I leverage for myself and my team, a CRM solution. We don't pass notes back and forth. If you didn't document it, it didn't happen, and you document it within the CRM. And from a hospice perspective or a home health perspective, or really just the healthcare, if you didn't document it in the health record, then there's no proof that it actually really happened, right? It may have. And what you're doing about that may change whenever you look at all of your data that comes together. So I would highly encourage you to check out what we have to offer from a can time perspective, because you might find that actually will meet your needs there.
Perfect. All right, there is still time to get questions in if you have another question. We do have one more that we got previously. The question was how to acquire more preferred Medicare referrals, which I can only assume at this moment is probably those more lucrative fee-for-service Medicare beneficiaries, although in some cases it might not be in your area. But the best advice I could give someone is to make sure that you have market intelligence to understand who is seeing those most lucrative patients, and who has the best fit patients for your organization. Every agency is not created equal. Who you think maybe your top competitor, maybe from a market share perspective, may actually operate very differently than your organization. So understanding your strengths, understanding your competitors' strengths, and how you play against those And then really understanding the market landscape. Who has the highest volumes of patients? Who are the unaffiliated organizations, health systems, who doesn't seem to have preferred partnerships that you can start building with, or who has preferred partnerships, but you have much higher, much better quality metrics with. So that's where I would really start with that one.
And the only thing I'll add to that is, like I'm a big partnership person. That's what I do every day. My partnerships with Trello, my partnerships with MedBridge, it's the relationships that you build there that matter the most. And having the data is going to help you with that. But really getting somebody out there that's going to be able to build and forge those relationships will put you ahead of the game, So getting out there and meeting with people and networking, and there's tons of events and things like that you can do to leverage and be able to see what others are doing. But how that's all housed in one system is really going to be the impact, the difference, So you can be doing all of this stuff, but if you're not documenting it and you're not having it in one area, then it's going to be a challenge to act on it, right?
Absolutely. And then a comment here, any words of encouragement on how to continue to handle the lower census of the skilled nursing facilities and lower hospice referrals from them in most areas during current COVID-19 times. So first, on the skilled nursing side, I would just say, I recently had a conversation with one of our customers at a skilled nursing facility, and I just have to acknowledge how hard that it has been. I mean, there are tons of just regulatory changes, the amount of money that they were spending on PPE, the different ways that they've had to do the physical therapy while the patients are being quarantined after coming from an acute stay. I mean, I just can't underscore how challenging that sounds in general. And, one of the things that we've seen, particularly on the hospice side, when you're not, because of the reduction in acute stays in skilled nursing facility stays, there's been more of an emphasis to build relationships in the community and with community physicians. So definitely would, if you haven't already started building those primary care physician relationships, would definitely think about starting to do more there, just as we know that the volume from acute and skilled nursing is going to continue to be low and continue to likely decline, particularly from skilled nursing.
The only thing that I'll add to that is it is a ridiculously hard time from the facility side, and how you're going to manage that. Education, that might seem like a no-brainer, and I'm sure you're probably already doing that, but educating your community, educating your referral sources, letting them know what you've done, what you're doing for safety measures, helping your people, and really being a resource for the families and things like that. That's going to be probably the area that I would focus in on as well.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, okay. The only thing I would add to that is really understanding the referral flow, maybe being a little bit different than what it was several years ago. Understanding that patients can be directly admitted to skilled nursing facilities in certain states from a home health agency. So understanding that the referral flow historically was from a hospital to skilled nursing facility, where point of entry could be a little bit different, and understanding how are we targeting or talking with partnered agencies or other post-acute providers, and understanding when patients truly should be going back to a skilled nursing facility instead.
Yeah, no, that's great, Joe. Just one final thought. Teresa, one of our director of services and consulting here, she's always saying one way to really build a relationship with organizations, particularly skilled nursing, because they've had to take on so many different things, is find a way that you can help lighten their load. And, that will help you improve your partnership with them. So, whether there's a service that you could be offering inside of the skilled nursing, if there's certain paperwork that you could take off of their plate, or ways that you could help, is also another angle to go in.
I would just want to add one thing to that. What you just said made me remember that on another webinar that I had done, somebody had this idea and it worked for them, where they offered to come into the facilities and just sanitize things, They were just a resource to help sanitize things, so that they were, their logos, and they were wearing a uniform and they were being seen there, but they were still helping from that capacity. So it is getting creative And the communities that we have as an industry have been so impressive to watch how everybody's come together with ideas for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we're at time. Really appreciate Kristen and Joe, you guys jumping on, sharing your perspectives. Certainly learned a lot from you guys and hope to continue this conversation on another day.
Absolutely. Always an honor. Thank you.
Guys.
Awesome. Thanks to everybody who joined. As I said, we'll send out the recording. And as always, feel free to get in touch if you have additional questions. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.